Let's get into the first fight, Spence, and have a look about Eubank's approach. Not have a look at his approach, but I want you to talk to me about what you thought of his approach to the first fight was.
Well, listen, I think that Chris started the fight very well. He executed the game plan very well. He worked behind the jab and he was keeping Conor at range. That's where Conor was struggling to get inside, to get the work, because that's where he needed to be. He needed to be in close. But Chris was doing well with them shots, keeping it long. But as the fight wore on, Conor was getting close and Chris was, you could see him starting to slow down a little bit. And I think when we got into the later rounds, the penultimate rounds, that's when Conor started to ask Chris questions about himself. And Chris, actually, he answered those questions. Because at the end of round 9, I saw him walking back to the corner. His head was down and you knew he was at that stage of a fight where you go, this guy has now got to show character. Because he was severely dehydrated. We could see that as the fight was wearing on. The strength was leaving his body. Conor was coming into it in the middle rounds. And then Chris, from somewhere, he is his father's son because he bit down on his gum shield and he found something from somewhere that only Chris knows how he got that. Because it was at a time where you could see the physicalities were leaving him. It was becoming a psychological battle and he bit down and he turned around and he done what champions do and he won the contest. And he won the contest, dare I say it, Chris Eubank Jr. probably being the worst version of himself because of the weight making going into that fight.
I mean, am I right, Chris, that you didn't like the way that your son approached the second half of the fight? Am I right in that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I said this is legendary behaviour to actually go and stand toe-to-toe, to sit in the pocket.
Yeah.
With a man who's 28 years old and you're 36. I know what 36 is. I retired at 32. I know what 36 is. And to be fighting an energy like Nigel Benn's son.
Chris, he was fighting on spirit there. That was what it was. Because, like I say, the physicalities had left Chris. You could see that he was tired, he was drained.
That's right.
But he found it from here. And that is the difference. Every fighter has a different pain threshold. And Chris took it to a deep, dark place there, for sure.
Question. How many times do you think you can go back to that particular way?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, it's not to me. I know.
That's the simple and only reason why I'm saying I'm going to side with Conor in this fight. Now, I've been in the ring with Chris. I've sparred him while you were there. You were in the same gym. The advice you were giving him all the time was about his boxing and his jab. And I was happy when he was jabbing because he is better, in my opinion, up close and personal. But he likes to fight and he can fight and he certainly can. But with regards to heart and desire and determination and not giving and not quitting, that's never going to be in Chris Jr. I'm not just saying it because you're here, he's got it in him. You had that in bags as a fighter.
But Paul,
that's what made you stand out as a fighter, your toughness, you're willing to win. I've watched Chris when he was gone, when my brother Liam caught him. The referee had stopped the fight and he's still trying to go at him. And he's still trying to fight on and he's still trying to... You can see it yourself on the video if you watch it back. The desire or the toughness or the chin or was always never in question with Junior. But he got caught with a couple of shots, and that was my only issue in this fight, and that's what my issue is going into this fight. I didn't think the fight was close, and I didn't think it should have been close, but it was a little bit closer than I thought, because I thought it was going to be completely one-sided for Chris, who was the bigger, stronger, better.
But let's say he gets the weight right this time, and he's 20% better than the version we saw in the last fight. Would you?
Can I ask you, Chris? I'm not sure whether you know, but I am of the opinion I think he did get the weight right. I think he just missed the timing up. Because the rehydration weight limit the next day tells me that he was okay, because he was only 8 pounds over the next day and he could have been up to 10. Now, if you get it wrong, usually you put a lot more on than 8 pounds the next day. That's just, again, just my opinion. That's why I'm asking you, and I might be wrong, but it's obviously the question.
I don't want to get into these rehydration clauses. These are, do you know what the word snare?
Yeah.
Okay, he's in a trap. This is a trap. Yeah. Okay, so, to talk, let me not speak. Now you will have to see. And once you do see, Mr. Jordan, I want you to spit fire at these authorities. And if you don't...
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later on the show.
No, we don't have to talk about it later. I want to say this. Then you would have earned your position to sit in the seat that you're in now, to be a commentator on this, the great game.
Fair enough. After the first fight, you said to talkSPORT, the credit I'm going to give to Conor. I told you he was a superior fighter. Why would you say that after your son had just won the fight? What was the purpose of that observation?
I've always been pro
Conor.
Conor. I've always
Is he superior to your son, though? Is that what you were saying?
No, obviously not. If anything, it actually elevates my son. If this man who is lost is a superior fighter, my son is above that because he's beaten him. I'm saying to you, what I was doing was being graceful about the performance about the performance of which he exemplified. You know, to fight a man who all the commentators, all the former fighters, you know, Chris, the bigger man, the bigger man, the bigger man, the bigger man. That should not be allowed because it's against the rules for someone to be a bigger man.
Yeah.
You know, middleweight fights middleweight, light heavyweight, light heavy, welterweight, welterweight. You know, when there is a change of that and you're going, so you have one guy who's 20 pounds lighter fighting a guy who's...
So you didn't mean, and we're going to pick the bones out of that particular observation later on in the show, right? Because I know you want to talk about it and you've got some very valid points to make about it. But to describe Conor as a superior fighter, was it superior fighter to the narrative?
Not to Junior.
Sorry, it wasn't
Junior
about,
won.
It was about the narrative that people were painting of him, which is he wasn't at a level. You're saying he was superior to some of the going on in the background that people were saying Conor Benn's not at this level. Is that the point you were making?
If you use bad language again, I will leave this interview.
All right, okay.
Okay, I am not with that level.
Fair enough. All of the nonsense and the misrepresentations that people were saying about Conor Benn's skill level, that was the point you were making by saying he was a superior fighter. It was simply against the backdrop of misrepresented observations about his ability.
Yes.
Right, fair enough.
And he proved it.
Right.
Beautifully.
Do you think so? He certainly proved he was game. What changes, Paul, do you think Chris is going to make tactically, knowing now what he knows about Conor? He himself has turned around and said that he didn't think Conor had in him what he had in him. So what do you expect the adjustments to be from Chris going into this second fight?
Me, I would do a lot more of what he did well early and get the jab going more, box a little bit more. I think now that he knows that Conor can have a little bit of an effect on him, then you don't need to stand and trade too much when you're the superior boxer. And I think, as we said last time, I felt Chris would have controlled the fight a lot easier than he did. And that's not putting Chris down, it's probably praising Conor Benn. As you said, it was a great effort. He surprised me on the night, Conor Benn, with how much he dug in and how well he did, given the weight deficit, given the weight advantage and the difference between the both fighters. And listen, the experience level between both fighters. Chris Eubank's been in with top fighters constantly. Conor Benn hasn't anywhere near as many as Chris Eubank, and he hasn't had as many 12-round fights and as many big fights on the big stage as Chris Eubank Jr. So I felt all that came into play on the night, and therefore I left the venue thinking that was a great night. It ticked the nostalgia box, it ticked the good fight, main event fight box for me, and it was a great fight to watch. And I think the second one will be the same, but I think Chris needs to box a little bit more and not engage a little bit too much early on when he doesn't have to. He can make it a bit comfortable for himself early on.
Going to the intangibles, we have seen, and this is where I've really warmed to his son and become much more flexible in my thinking about his son, whether he likes it or not, is his masterclasses in press conferences, his ability to be able to curate the outcomes that he wants and control the temperature of the conversation, and his boldness, whether it's crass, some of the things he says, some of the language he uses at times, or it's actually on the money. What do you expect to see? Do you expect Chris to control the conversations in the press conferences and the temperature of the room again? Well,
we're going to see a little bit of that again later on, and I think that's Chris's game. You know, I think that the mind games start now, from now, and that had an effect on Conor Benn. Like I say, the emotions took over in the performance, and that was because of the lead up, the build up, you know, in the press conferences where Chris completely controlled it. You know, he's a genius at that. You know, and I think everyone's accepted that, and that's why Conor now is playing it back. Yesterday, when we were at the media day, Conor was playing it back. He was very reserved and conducted himself very well, to be fair. You know, but Chris Eubank Jr. recognises it. He just waits to see, you know, where it's going, and then he'll pounce. You know, he'll throw the narrative out. He's done it already with the ambulances, and then maybe something else that he's got up his sleeve. But you've got to accept that Chris will always control the press conferences. That's his game.
Chris, what do you think of your son's... I mean, it's part of the game. In the end of the day, it's not won and lost in those environments, but notwithstanding it, it creates a temperature, it creates a tone, it perhaps gets into people's psyche. When you watch your son perform in a press conference, What do you think watching him as your son? I mean, we've heard things being said. We saw the egg slap, which I know you didn't like, and you said, I didn't raise my son to be that way, right? And we heard things like Conor Benn coming back saying, well, you've got a masterclass. You've managed to master the situation of your own father not even liking you. So we hear these sort of comments that go back and forward. When you listen to Chris in a press conference, what goes through your head if you listen to him? If you do listen to him, I'm assuming you do.
I have to put it this way, that so 2011, 2012, he turned pro, and you saw me with him right the way through up until, let's say, 2016. So effectively, in taking him to school, and I'm talking about the school of boxing,
Yep.
the school of hard knocks,
Yep.
in taking him to school, it seems as though I've done a tremendous job. A tremendous job, right?
Well, you was the genius at controlling those press conferences yourself.
No,
And you were very good at that, Chris. And he is like a chip off the old block.
He's saying that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I brought him to...
Yeah.
I was speaking for him. All he was doing was stone cold. And I was there giving it the poetry.
So are you
he's
impressed
watching,
that he's learnt his lessons? The apple hasn't fallen far from the tree.
I can only go by the words of which you speak.
He's bold. Look at the things he says.
When you say and when you speak of him so highly in terms of how he engages the public and how he winds people up, excuse me.
Yeah, well done.
Chris,
Yeah.
would you agree that he's changed recently and that he's endeared to a lot more fans and he's won a lot more people like me over, and you're watching him with a smile on your face now, and you know yourself when you used to fight. I went to watch you with my dad in the G-Mex when you fought Mauro Galvano, and it was one of my first ever pro fights I went to. But people were there to watch you, and maybe a quarter or half were there to see you lose, and a quarter to half were there to see you win. And you were loved to be hated and loved to be loved as well. And as he's got a bit older, do you think he's changed a little bit in his persona, whereas he's a lot more likable now?
Again, this class or school I took him through, he's now going through the entire spectrum. So that spectrum is, okay, you've gone from being maybe disliked to being liked to being loved. The key is to get the hearts of the people. That is the key. It isn't the money. With the hearts of the people, you can get the type of wealth that I have, which is something that I cannot speak on because it may shock you.
Okay, fantastic. Has he graduated this school with honours then?
That I'm only
to
listening.
To be seen.
No, you've already given him his flowers.
Maybe because he's unable to breathe and he hasn't got you there now, that he's actually doing something different. He's learnt all his lessons and he's out there doing it without you on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Just a thought process.
Let's listen to
I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there. People make their own view on it.
Yeah, but you're saying that you're a bigot. You're telling people that you're a bigot.
There's nothing bigoted about that. Don't be so bloody silly.
Yeah.
Do better than that.
What?
Nothing bigoted about it.
What is a father supposed to do? Am I supposed to just take him and
let his son develop and shine?
That's what he's
rise
doing.
To the surface.
That's what he's doing. But
well, let's not rehash the argument we just had.
Hold on.
I've opened a can of worms again.
Because
back down the cul-de-sac.
No, it's not. It's not. What I'm trying to point out to you is that, when you're loved by somebody, I love my son.
Indeed you do.
Okay, so that love, I'm protecting him and I'm steering him in the right direction right the way through. Now, to some people on the outside, like you, like what you just said, when are you going to get away from him? No, don't teach people that.
You've got it.
Keep the father next to the child.
We disagree. We can agree to disagree, can't we? We can disagree.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do. And that's why I can speak as a father. And I don't agree with you. So we all agree to disagree, right? But
there was a movie. Sorry, I'm just talking now.
Go on.
Okay, there's a movie about the Williams sisters. And
yes, about
the
their father
Richard.
I saw it, yeah.
Okay, well, King Richard. Look at that. Look. If you watch that movie, you will see I'm being exactly as he was. You can't be. A child cannot be successful if you leave the child to do it by themselves.